I can't remember a time where I wasn't using a credit card. I think from probably about the age of 18. When you get the card, it doesn't seem that daunting when you first start. You think, oh, you know, I'll only have £200 or £300 or something like that, and that'll take me probably about 6 months to pay off at most. So it seems quite a safe way to borrow initially. From quite a young age, I was relying on credit cards and just continued throughout my 20s in kind of free fall.
Rosie was working in low-paid retail jobs. Before long, couldn't afford to clear a credit card at the end of every month. As the interest built up, she found herself in serious debt.
A lot of it was just paying bills, general everyday expenditures. I was never a big spender. I was never go out on the weekends with my friends and just absolutely throw money about. Not a designer fan, anything like that. It's just accrued. There's no one big thing that I can point to as the reason why this debt started to stack up. Monthly repayments might start around about £20, £30, £40. It goes up and up until suddenly you're in almost the hundreds, double hundreds. That starts to get really frightening because it becomes really out of control very quickly.
When she was 24, Rosie wanted to better her life, so she went back to college to study photography. But this had a big impact on her already unmanageable finances.
Once I'd stopped working full-time and began studying, my income had changed, which meant that my income was lower and my outgoings were still much higher. Credit cards were there. I tried to avoid using them, but when you need to eat, you need to get transport to do something, or you need to get transport to be able to get to a job to work, you're going to dip into the credit card, so that's what I did.
Rosie had now racked up over £4,000 of debt.
The notices started to come in, they started to pile up. It would be instant demands, big red lettering. I remember being in tears on the phone to them, like, regularly. You're working as hard as you can to be able to do everything I could to pay it off. I was studying full-time and I was working 3 different jobs. It got to the point where I was eating plain pasta just with some butter on it, because that's kind of consistently all I could afford to eat most nights. That was really quite upsetting, and it wasn't, you know, I was still in the rock and the hard place. I wasn't getting out of it at all. I began to withdraw. I couldn't afford to go out, I couldn't afford to see friends. I almost felt sort of ashamed and out of control. You keep your debt to yourself. It's like an embarrassment. You don't ask for help from others. It's just something you kind of quietly deal with behind closed doors.
Eventually, there was a ray of hope. As she was finishing college, Rosie got a job as a clinical photographer with the NHS, which has its own credit union. So she turned to them for help with her debt.
To approach someone eventually and say, this is really out of control and I really need help with a resolution with this, it was a really big relief. And the staff have always been very, very approachable, very friendly. You can speak to people and ask them advice, and they've always just been very, very helpful.
The NHS Credit Union gave her a low-cost loan to pay off her high-interest credit card debt. And alongside, Rosie also started a regular savings scheme.
I was kind of quite taken aback by how different it seemed. More manageable. You were actually paying off the debt rather than just paddling water. It just seemed to clear up really quickly. Before I knew it, the numbers were really dropping. For the first time in my life, I had savings. I've never had that. It was a really strange feeling for me.
It took Rosie almost 3 years to pay off her loans and be debt-free.
Once I'd paid off my debt, money was coming in that was mine. I can kind of afford to plan, and it's a complete awakening for me. It's really something else.
She even saved enough to pay for a trip to America to visit her brother.
Being able to go out and visit him is massive for me. I spent a lot of time with my niece and nephew. I had a lot of really good laughs with them. We just spent a lot of time together. It was an amazing trip. If I was to talk to my 18-year-old self, I'd say take money seriously because it can get out of control really, really quickly.